WeBuyHousesCashOrTerm.com.
Hey, my name is Sarah, the ambassador of We Buy Houses, CashOrTerm.com. If you think the housing market is finally calming down, this new foreclosure data says otherwise. In February 2026 alone, 38,840 U.S. properties had foreclosure filings. That is up 20% from a year earlier, and it marks the 12th straight month of year-over-year increases. At the same time, lenders started foreclosure proceedings on 25,928 properties, and banks completed 4,077 repossessions. That means the pressure is no longer theoretical. It is showing up in real households, real neighborhoods, and real balance sheets. Now here is why this matters. Most people hear foreclosure numbers and think we are heading right back to 2008. That is not exactly what the data says. Foreclosure activity is clearly rising. But Adam also notes that overall levels are still below historic crisis-era peaks. So this is not yet a full-blown housing crash. It is something more specific and in many ways more dangerous because it can sneak up on people. It is a stress market. A market where homeowners are getting squeezed by insurance, taxes, debt, and payment shock, even if home prices have not collapsed. And that is the story your audience needs to understand. Think about the average homeowner right now. Buying a typical home now requires roughly $110,000 in annual income, far above what many households actually earn. One recent estimate put the number at about $111,252 a year, while another analysis cited about $110,000 needed to cover the purchase, along with taxes and insurance. Either way, the message is the same. Affordability is still badly broken. So what happens when affordability stays broken for too long? People who bought at the edge of their budget start running into trouble first. Maybe the mortgage payment was manageable when insurance was lower. Maybe property taxes were still tolerable. Maybe the household had two incomes and now it has one. Maybe they used credit cards to survive inflation, and now that debt is catching up. Foreclosure is usually not one bad decision. It is a chain reaction. The homeowner gets stretched, the payment gets missed, fees get added, options shrink. Then, what looked like a temporary setback becomes a foreclosure timeline. And the January numbers showed that this pressure was already building fast before February. In January 2026, 40,534 properties had foreclosure filings, up 32% from January 2025. That is a major jump in 1 year, and it tells you this trend is not random noise. It is broad-based housing stress. And the geography of these foreclosure filings matters too. Texas, Florida, and California led the nation in foreclosure starts by volume. That makes sense, because they are large states with huge housing stock and major affordability problems in key metros. But when you look at foreclosure rates relative to the number of homes, states like Delaware, Nevada, and Florida stand out. That tells us this is not only about size. It is about where the homeowner is most exposed to rising costs and weaker affordability.
So if you are waiting for the perfect time to seize this opportunity, the time is now.
Are you fed up with carrying the burden of a house you can't afford? Tired of being a landlord? House needs too many repairs? Going through foreclosure? Facing divorce? Income or job loss? Medical bills? Relocation? Inherited an unwanted house? Tired of paying taxes on a vacant house? No matter the reason, condition, or price, we buy houses as is.
WeBuyHousesCashOrTerm.com is your real estate housing consultant when you need to sell your house fast, as is condition, to a cash home buyer and get peace of mind.
Now, let's talk about what this means beyond homeowners, because foreclosure stress never stays isolated inside housing. It hits mortgage servicers first because distressed loans cost more to manage. It hits real estate agents because distressed markets often mean fewer healthy transactions and more deals that fall apart. It hits title companies, attorneys, probate specialists, and court systems because foreclosure and inherited property disputes create more legal and procedural complexity. It hits contractors and maintenance companies because distressed homes often need repairs before they can be sold. And it hits local governments because vacant or distressed properties can drag down surrounding values and weaken the tax base. This is why housing stress spreads into the broader economy. It slows spending, hiring, renovation activity, and neighborhood-level investment. And there's another layer here that makes this story even more important. The supply side is still broken. Home prices have remained elevated because the country still has a housing shortage, and lawmakers are now trying to respond. The Senate recently advanced a bipartisan housing bill aimed at lowering barriers to construction, expanding affordable housing financing, modernizing rules for factory-built homes, and restricting some large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes. The bill passed the Senate 89-10, but it still has to be reconciled with the House before it can become law. That matters because many homeowners feel trapped in a market where prices stayed high, inventory stayed tight, and competition from large investors made entry-level homes even harder to buy. So, if that legislation moves forward, it could become one of the biggest housing policy stories of the year. At the same time, there is still debate over whether restricting institutional investors will meaningfully improve affordability or just create new distortions in the market. And this is where your story gets powerful on YouTube, because this is not just a foreclosure story. It is a pressure story. The homeowner feels pressure because income has not kept up with housing costs. The buyer feels pressure because even a tiny house can carry a shocking price tag. The lender feels pressure because defaults are rising. Lawmakers feel pressure because voters are angry about affordability. And investors feel pressure because the rules of the game may be changing. That is what makes this moment different. The market is not simply crashing. It is straining from multiple directions at once. So, what should homeowners and property owners take from this? First, rising foreclosure filings do not automatically mean a repeat of 2008. But they do signal that distress is spreading. Second, affordability remains the core issue. If households need around $110,000 a year just to afford a typical home, the market is still out of sync with reality. Third, policy is starting to react. And any law that affects housing supply or institutional buyers could reshape parts of the single-family market. And for inherited probate property owners, this environment creates both risk and urgency. If a family inherits a house with deferred maintenance, tax arrears, insurance problems, or multiple heirs who cannot agree, a stressed market can turn that property into a financial burden fast. Inherited homes are especially vulnerable when carrying costs rise and decision-making gets delayed. That is why probate properties are becoming a bigger part of the distressed housing conversation, even when they do not show up as a separate national headline. So here's the bottom line. Foreclosures are rising again. Affordability is still broken. Banks are taking back more homes. Large states like Texas, Florida, and California are leading in foreclosure starts, while states like Delaware, Nevada, and Florida show some of the highest foreclosure rates. And Washington is now trying to intervene with housing legislation that could change how supply and investor activity shape the market. If you own a home, inherit property, invest in real estate, or work in housing-related business, this is not the time to watch the market casually. This is the time to pay attention to distress signals before they become missed opportunities or major losses.
So if you are waiting for the perfect time to seize this opportunity, the time is now.
Are you fed up with carrying the burden of a house you can't afford? Tired of being a landlord? House needs too many repairs? Going through foreclosure? Facing divorce? Income or job loss? Medical bills? Relocation? Inherited an unwanted house? Tired of paying taxes on a vacant house? No matter the reason, condition, or price, we buy houses as is.
WeBuyHousesCashOrTerm.com is your real estate housing consultant when you need to sell your house fast, as is condition, to a cash home buyer and get peace of mind.